John Cleese delivered some of the most hilarious moments ever seen on television. Yet, at 85, his reality looks very different. Despite raking in millions from Monty Python and Fawlty Towers, he's unexpectedly strapped for cash. 3 punishing divorces, his third wife walked away with more than he kept. Now he grinds through relentless tours just to make ends meet. He even calls them his Alimony Tours. The comedy great who kept us laughing for decades can't afford to stop working. So what actually happened to his wealth? The truth may astonish you. John Cleese was born on October 27, 1939, in the seaside town of Weston-super-Mare, Somerset. His childhood house at 27 Locking Road looked like a typical suburban home, but inside lived a family defined by strict routines and middle-class propriety. His father, Reginald Francis Cleese, had changed the family surname from Cheese to Clee to avoid mockery tied to such an unusual name. Reginald made his living as an insurance salesman for the Prudential Assurance Company, going door to door to collect small weekly premiums. The work covered expenses, but it was modest and kept the family in the lower middle class. His mother, Muriel Evelyn Cross, was a homemaker deeply concerned with appearances and social decorum. Together, they maintained a household where money worries were common and social respectability meant everything. Those early pressures sharpened Cleese's eye for the comedy of class, rules, and the absurd rituals of British daily life. By age 12, Cleese was already 6 feet tall. His unusual height made him conspicuous everywhere. At St. Peter's Preparatory School, classmates nicknamed him Skyscraper and Beanpole. Teachers frequently drew attention to him simply because he towered over everyone. Even practical matters became tricky. His uniforms had to be custom ordered. He couldn't sit comfortably at standard desks, and in school photos, he stood out like a misplaced adult among children. Instead of feeling proud, he grew self-conscious and tried to shrink himself by slouching. The constant teasing left marks, but it also sowed the seeds of the physical comedy that later defined him, especially in the exaggerated walks and movements he used on stage and screen. The bullying pushed him to cultivate a razor-sharp wit. At first, it was purely self-defense. A well-timed quip or clever jab could flip a moment and even make his tormentors laugh. He drilled lines and expressions in front of his bedroom mirror until his timing was flawless. His mother feared his quick tongue would land him in trouble, but his father quietly recognized it as a survival tool. Over time, Cleese grew adept at reading a room and knowing exactly when a joke could diffuse tension. What began as a coping mechanism became his greatest strength. In 1953, Cleese transferred to Clifton College in Bristol, a prestigious school where he concealed his insecurities behind achievement. He excelled in Latin, Greek, and English literature and became a strong cricket bowler, finally finding a space where his height helped. He was appointed head of his house and joined the elite 20 club for top students. To outsiders, he looked like the ideal pupil, bright, confident, and gifted. In truth, he felt like an interloper, worried that his modest background would set him apart from wealthier peers. He studied late, memorizing texts to ensure he never appeared unperturbed. Teachers praised his maturity and leadership, not realizing that his poise and humor were carefully constructed defenses forged by years of struggle. In 1958, Cleese won a place at Downing College, Cambridge, to read law. Although Pembroke College was his first choice, an influx of students returning from national service meant he had to defer for 2 years. During the wait, he returned to his old prep school to teach. When he finally arrived at Cambridge, he set his sights on the famed Footlights Theatrical Club. Initially rejected, he kept at it. Teaming up with fellow student Alan Hutcherson, he wrote material for the 1961 review, and by 1962, he'd become the club's registrar. What began as a legal education soon revealed his true path. There he met Graham Chapman, a partnership that would reshape comedy. Their writing method was unusual. Cleese did most of the drafting, while Chapman sat silent for long stretches, then suddenly dropped an idea that often transformed the sketch. A prime example is the Dead Parrot sketch. Cleese first wrote it about a broken toaster. Chapman suggested swapping in a deceased Norwegian blue parrot, turning it into one of Monty Python's most iconic bits. In 1963, Cleese and the Footlights troupe mounted a clump of plinths at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. The show succeeded and transferred to London's West End on July 10 of that year. Retitled Cambridge Circus, it confused some who thought it referenced the physical location. The cast featured future luminaries Tim Brooke, Taylor, David Hatch, Bill Oddie, Chris Stewart Clark, Joe Kendall, and Graham Chapman. The production toured New Zealand in summer 1964, where they recorded a TV special, and 4 radio programs later aired in November and December. Soon after, the troupe performed on Broadway in September and then moved off-Broadway. Their biggest exposure came with an appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show in October 1964, reaching a vast American audience. An album of sketches and songs produced by George Martin had already been released by Parlophone in 1963, further boosting their profile. Cleese later admitted in his autobiography that during the Cambridge Circus tour in New Zealand in 1960, he described it as a surprising, almost accidental encounter shaped more by chance than pursuit. He explained that his hometown of Weston-super-Mare had felt very asexual, and before Cambridge, he'd had little opportunity for romance. This late start revealed a different side of him, socially awkward and cautious. More passive than people assumed. After Cambridge, police joined the Frost Report in 1960. The writer's room brimmed with talent, including Eric Idle, Terry Jones, Michael Palin, Bill Oddie, Tim Brooke, Taylor, Barry Cryer, Marty Feldman, Ronnie Barker, and Ronnie Corbett. The team became a powerhouse of British comedy. On April 7, 1966, Cleese formed in the famous Class sketch alongside Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett. Their contrasting heights perfectly embodying the upper, middle, and working classes. At 6'5", Cleese projected the upper class with ease. The sketch became a classic. The British Film Institute later praised its stark simplicity and bite. In 1969, British television changed for good. On October 5th, Monty Python's Flying Circus debuted on BBC One, unlike anything viewers had seen. The first episode had been taped a month earlier, on September 7th, and kicked off a run of 45 episodes across 4 series. It wasn't just another sketch show, it blew up the standard format, ignoring tidy punchlines and neat narrative. Instead, it flowed like a stream of absurdity, leaping from one bizarre idea to the next. The troupe had rare creative freedom, and they used it to stretch the limits of comedy. People later likened their impact to what the Beatles did in music. By the time they received the BAFTA Award for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema in 1988, their reputation as comedy revolutionaries was sealed. One of their most renowned moments was the Dead Parrot sketch in the episode Full Frontal Nudity. The bit about a shopkeeper refusing to admit a parrot had died transcended mere humor and entered British cultural lore. Years later, even Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher quoted it in a speech, though she didn't fully grasp the joke. Audiences adored it so much that live performances became tricky, because fans would recite the lines along with the cast. Behind the laughs, however, the group wrestled with serious issues. Graham Chapman, one of Monty Python's brightest, was struggling with worsening alcoholism as the series progressed. By the 3rd season, John Clay confessed he was exhausted by Chapman's drinking. Matters came to a head in 1975 during the filming of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Chapman experienced delirium tremens, a dangerous condition that strikes heavy drinkers who abruptly stop, typically those consuming half a liter of spirits or about 7 or 8 pints of beer daily for a decade or more. The condition was so severe that Chapman, once an accomplished climber, couldn't even do the Bridge of Death scene without a body double. Michael Palin later wrote in his diary that Chapman was sometimes too drunk to perform during college shows, leading to confrontations with Clay after performances. Although Chapman eventually recognized he had to quit drinking, the toll was too great. He died at just. Many remembered him as openly gay but secretly alcoholic, a stark reminder of the hidden suffering behind his brilliance. Cleese hit another crossroads himself. By the end of the 3rd series, he felt the show was losing its spark. He'd considered leaving after the 2nd series, but on a flight to Toronto, he finally told the group, "I want out." Eric Idle later said, Cleese bored faster than the others and didn't care about being liked. Cleese admitted he believed only 2 sketches from Series 3, Dennis Moore, and Cheese Shop were truly original, while the rest felt recycled. Although he was credited on 3 episodes of the 4th series, he had formally stepped away. The difference: earlier seasons ran 13 episodes each, but the 4th wrapped after just 6. Even the title card shortened to simply Monty Python, signaling the end of an era. Basil Fawlty became one of television's most unforgettable figures. He was a hotelier who seemed to despise hospitality, treating guests as problems rather than patrons. Played by John Cleese, Basil was a cutting, sharp-tongued snob desperate to attract high-class clientele, yet his temper constantly plunged the place into chaos. Cleese's performance was so strong that he won the British Academy Television Award for Best Entertainment Performance in 2001. Channel 4 ran a poll, ranking Basil the second greatest TV character of all time, just behind Homer Simpson. His staying power came from how he amplified ordinary human flaws into manic comedy. His tirades, sarcasm, and endlessly frayed patience made him both awful and captivating, creating a character still instantly recognized across the UK decades after the series ended.